Okay, perfect, so we'll have plenty of time to discuss everything. So just wanna give you an introduction, cause I don't think I've met any of you before. But my name is Qiana James, and I'm the founder and CEO of a senior care agency called Friendly Faces Senior Care. So what my company does is we provide senior care services, or what's called personal assistant services for seniors. So we help them with things like sitting and transferring and going to the doctors. Nothing related to education. But we have teamed up with students before, high school students and college students, and we offer mentorships and we offer volunteer programs. We're about to bring on an intern from Texas A&M. So we really like to get involved with the success of students. So I just throw that out there because a lot of times you may know students that, might need some mentoring or something like that. We really like to give back in that way. I know that was very helpful for me when I was in school, so I'm a big believer in giving back. So if you notice here, I'm involved in a lot of stuff. I'm a busy bee. So I took a little vacation last year, as most of us did, but things are starting to come back. My degree is from the University of Houston, go Cougs. And I actually have a degree in entrepreneurship. So there's a program that's called the Wolf Center for Entrepreneurship, and it's actually the #1 program in the US right now. It's amazing. This was a specialized program that taught entrepreneurship. So you had to apply to get in at U of H. It was really hard to get in. They only accepted like 30 people into the program. So I was fortunate to get in way a long time ago. I graduated in 2003, but I'm still a part of the Alumni Association, and I keep in touch with the program to this day. It's produced a lot of amazing entrepreneurs, not just this program at the University of Houston as a whole. A lot of people that are in our business community have graduated from U of H, so I am a proud alumni of U of H. And as you see, I am involved with several other things, including an executive board member here for the Pearland Chamber of Commerce. And I'm the one that's helping out with the committee. I'm the vice president of this business and entrepreneurship committee. So when Carol started talking about really wanting to concentrate on entrepreneurship, I got butterflies inside of me because it's just something I'm really, really passionate about. And I will say, entrepreneurship is not for everyone. It's very, very hard, but I think everyone can take things from the entrepreneurial mindset, and you can use that in your day-to-day lives. And so this committee that I'm spearheading, the Business and Entrepreneur Development Committee, this is a part of the chamber. It's committed to supporting programs that promote a positive business climate in the community that makes Pearland a better place to live and work. And our focus on entrepreneurship is something that we're doing here locally, but also within the Houston community as a whole. There's a big push for entrepreneurship, and how do we produce and make more entrepreneurs within our city and our area. We encourage the spirit of cooperation among government, education, legislators, other nonprofits and partners by hosting a roundtable discussion on areas of responsibility and to foster collaboration. For example, having you guys here today. That's a way that we coordinate with our community leaders and trying to make our community better. And I don't know if you guys live in Pearland. I am not a native Pearland person. I've been here since I think maybe 2011, but it is an absolutely wonderful community. So very proud to live in Pearland. And if you ever want to join our meetings, if you're not working or tuning in, we have them. They go live on Zoom and live on Facebook. They're held the third Friday of each month at 10 a.m. And these are some of the topics that we are covering. And you might know people that are small business owners or entrepreneurship that might benefit from any of these topics. So please spread the word. but it just talks about some of the topics for 2021 that we're really just kind of focusing on. This next month here, we're gonna have this topic on branding and PR. So it's basically free information for individuals that are either business owners or trying to expand their business. Many people just really wanting to get into business, into entrepreneurship. And so it's a resource from the chamber that we want to give to those individuals. Now, let's look at a few stats as it pertains to entrepreneurship. There are 30.2 million small businesses in the United States. They comprise 99.9% of all U.S. businesses. That's huge. So, for the most part, our country is run on small businesses. That's what makes up America. Nearly half of all Americans, that's 47.5%, are employed by small businesses. And businesses with less than 100 workers employ the largest share of American workers. So these are the stats as it pertains to entrepreneurship. If entrepreneurship and small businesses is really what fuels our country, why are we not really teaching that and those skills at the high school level? I looked it up. There are a few areas that they kind of teach entrepreneurship, but for the most part as a whole, it's really not a curriculum. I know for myself, I wanted to be an entrepreneur since I was 8. Something I always wanted to do. I would have loved to have classes on entrepreneurship. And the thing about it is, everyone is so different, so diverse. One thing or just college may not work for everyone, and it might. I did go to a vocational high school. I don't know if you guys have heard, it's all on the north side called Barbara Jordan. It's a high school for vocational careers. So in addition to going to a specialized program at the University of Houston, I was also in specialized program in high school. At that particular time, I chose cosmetology, but I got to see firsthand how I can train for a skill in high school and I can graduate and be able to work. Because once I graduated, I already had my license. It was still my goal to go to college, so I still pursued college, but for some people, that may not be their goal. For some people, college may not be for them. So we just want to offer options. And when I think about entrepreneurship, most people that become entrepreneurs, they don't go on the track that I did. They don't study entrepreneurship in school. Most of them, they kind of fall into entrepreneurship, where they see something and they're like, oh man, there's a need for this, let me do it. So many entrepreneurs don't even go to college. So entrepreneurship to me is something that really, when you think about that American dream or that goal, America is full of people from so many other areas and they come here with this dream. Entrepreneurship is one big way that many people are able to achieve that dream. So many people, and I have a very diverse background of associates, and I know people come here with absolutely nothing. And they work, 2 and 3 jobs, and they save, and then they start businesses. It's amazing. But what if we're able to bring these same skills at the student level and start planting those seeds? And that's what we really want to think about. These are some of the professions, or the most common professions that you will find entrepreneurs in. As you see, I'm in healthcare. And depending on the industry, will depend on, the need. People are constantly coming up with new ideas. It's so interesting. We just came through COVID, and how many entrepreneurs were born through the pandemic? And they say that happens during other times of war and pandemics, etc. So what is entrepreneurship education? What we're talking about here is collaborating and working with a team, teaching our students such skills such as public speaking, collecting, analyzing, and using data, handling real complex problems that don't have a definitive answer, and using curiosity and creativity to find an innovative approach to difficult problems. And I really like that one because there's a lot of people, like I say, we want to appeal to all. And there's a lot of people where, a lot of times we're trying to push a kid or a student on one path, and that just may not be the path for them. But they may have a skill set in other areas. So as educators, and I know I'm not an educator, but still as educators, we want to make sure that really focusing on that child, those individual children, and be able to offer them a plethora of different opportunities. Because what we don't want to happen is for them to have a skill set, no one really tapped into it, and maybe they go into the wrong direction. So why teach entrepreneurship? We want to prepare students for an uncertain future. I just spoke about the COVID-19 pandemic. How many of us in here knew that was going to happen? And it seemed like it just happened overnight. I mean, businesses shut down. Our whole way of life just changed. Just like that. That can happen at any time. You know, a lot of times I feel like here in America, we're so naive, you know, and we think, oh, things are gonna be great all the time. And I think COVID-19 was a real eye-opener. How things can change in a moment's notice. So we don't know what can happen in the future. You know, what if there was some type of war? Remember that feeling when 9/11 happened? How that changed the scene. That changed really our sense of security. I know it did for me. So we don't know what type of future we're facing, especially for our children and when they're getting older. So teaching entrepreneurship is something that's really good for them because it helps them with such skills such as problem solving, teamwork, empathy, as well as learning to accept failure as a part of the growth process. I think that's very important because we're always pushing this win, 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 and not everybody can win, and sometimes we fail. And that's okay. Some of our greatest lessons are learned through our failures. Most entrepreneurs fail a number of times. You can take the greatest entrepreneurs, the greatest CEOs, and they can tell you stories of how they failed probably multiple times. But that will teach them resilience. That will teach them hard work. That will teach them, okay, if I do fail, how do I pick up the pieces and keep moving? Students develop their creativity and collaboration skills. So through teaching entrepreneurship, that supports creativity, innovation, and collaboration. And those are real skills whether they leave the program and they become entrepreneurs themselves, or they go off into college or businesses. Those are key skills that top colleges want to see and that businesses want to see in individuals. So as we talk about this, we don't just focus on the fact that we're just talking about entrepreneurship. We're talking about the skills or the mindset. So even if a person does not become an entrepreneur, they can still take those same skills into the real world. Teaches students how to identify and recognize problems. And that's key because they have to be able to identify the problem before they can learn how to solve them. A lot of time in school, when they're teaching problem solving, they've already identified the problem. That problem is already clearly defined by someone else. So we're talking about how do we teach them to identify that problem that they may never have dealt with before. And if we teach our kids how to do that, how much more are we benefiting them for the real world? When you don't have people sitting there saying, okay, well, this is a problem, solve it. That's a real world skill. And we talked about this a little bit about helping the students become resilient. So you can have a child that has the best grades, come from the best socioeconomic status, be highly intelligent, and that's not going to predict their long-term success. We like to say it will, in many cases it does, but not always. We have some of the greatest entrepreneurs in our country with a high school education or less. So when we talk about entrepreneurship, we're talking about teaching them how to persist, how to be persistent, how to be resilient, have that grit factor, be determined. So it doesn't matter what your skill level is, what your background is, where you're from. I have an idea, and I'm gonna make this happen. That's the type of what we wanna build into our students. And then learning to work through problems and adapt to changes. This will improve a student's chance of having professional and personal success in the long run. These are key skills that we're talking about teaching our students. I know one thing for me, just thinking back in high school and middle school, a long time ago. But, you know, a lot of times there was a heavy concentration just on the curriculum and this is the answer and study for this. And I would have loved to see more practical application. I know one thing for me, I was like, I had to learn the hard way. I was like, why didn't they teach about finances? They talked about math and all these different maths that were way over my head. Math was not my subject. But real life thing, like what about credits and how to pay bills and what to do about your credit. These are key. I don't know if they're in the school, I don't know if they're teaching that now. They didn't back in my day. But these are key skills that I had to learn on my own. And my mom, she's like, don't do what I did. That was my lesson. Yeah. And I did exactly what she did at first. I remember, I was at U of H, I still remember that day. And now I know they've done some kind of regulation as it comes to credit cards. But back then they didn't. I was like, oh, I want these t-shirts. They signed me up for 7 credit cards. I'm a broke college student. I barely have a job. Why are you giving me 7 credit cards? Because now I think I'm rich. Oh, wow, I got money. Those are skills that I wish I could have taught in high school. I had to learn the hard way. So we're talking about teaching them skills that's gonna help them to really be set up for success and set up for success faster. And then encouraging students to make the world a better place. So a lot of times when people think of entrepreneurship, or even if you talk with kids and they talk about, hey, owning your own business, they're thinking about the glam of, oh, I'm gonna make all this money, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna have all this freedom. But really, when you think about the core of entrepreneurship or small businesses, they really do make the world a better place. Because they focus on a need that's there. A need for the customer. How does it make our life easier? If we think of some entrepreneurs, you know, how does it make our life easier? I know, I'm just gonna take, for example, this mask. I never had, okay, let me put a caveat. I did wear a mask before, but I would wear like what you have on, a surgical mask, when I was flying. But then, when COVID happened and I was watching what was happening, I was like, I think these masks are not going away anytime soon. I should order me some nice masks to wear. And I was like, I'm not gonna do it, I'm not gonna do it. And then finally I started looking it up. And the next thing I know, Facebook tells me what I need to buy all the time. Side note, I started online shopping during COVID. Yeah. Oops. But then I started finding all these people that were baking all these fancy masks. And now people, they always ask me, they're like, do you have a mask for every outfit? I'm like, yeah. But I mean, that's just something that was born out of a pandemic. I'd be interested to know how many people are making a lot of money off masks, designer masks. And we can go on and on. There's so many examples that we can think of. I mean, what about getting our hair and nails done? You know, if people didn't get into entrepreneurship to do those things, I mean, we'd be trying to do them ourselves. You know, so there's multiple things. Entrepreneurship, it makes life easier and more enjoyable. And then teachers can support and encourage their students to be motivated by a desire to help people with a product or service. So yes, you can make a lot of money in entrepreneurship, but really what we want to do is have them to focus on making the world a better place. Being innovative, being creative, thinking, what do we need, you know? That's how ideas are made. Because they're like, okay, there's a problem, no one's solving it. Oh, let me do this. Think about the internet. How much did that tie everybody in? What if whoever created the internet wasn't just sitting there brainstorming one day? Again, we can go on and on as it pertains to that. So entrepreneurship in the high school. What we're talking about is students learning practices that successful entrepreneurs use today to develop, test, and launch a business, all while gaining skills around problem solving, iteration, and collaboration. Established companies seek to hire employees with an entrepreneurial mindset, again, we've spoken about that already, to drive innovation, relevancy, and competitive advantages at these organizations. That's called entrepreneurship, and they actually teach that as a course at the University of Houston. How do you take that entrepreneurial mindset and put it into the real world? That gives people, or students, a competitive advantage. Encouraging entrepreneurial thinking, problem solving, and work skills development, as well as an understanding of business and professional demeanor. Empowering students with an entrepreneurial mindset that can serve them regardless of their career path. Prepare a student at the high school level to assume leadership roles in the business world, teaching them how to run their own business from the inception of an idea through its implementation. And that is very hard. And I did it. It's very, very hard. I remember when I was forming Friendly Faces, and I just sat down. You know, everybody has their own creative process in mind. I just sit down, have a piece of paper or a Word document, and I'm just brainstorming. I'm putting a bunch of ideas. I have one of those minds where I'm always having these ideas, and I literally drive my husband nuts. And he's like, oh gosh, what she's thinking of now. But I'm just putting down all my ideas. And so it's, for me, I love to see something start with an idea and then grow into this massive thing. And there's so many people in our world with an idea. It all starts with an idea. Communities are beginning to realize the value of growing their own entrepreneurs to secure economic viability in the future. And so what Carol's doing is brilliant. Really focusing on entrepreneurship in our community. That's something that can help us really to stand out. We know we have people that are moving to Texas, Houston, Austin, Dallas, San Antonio in scores. If anybody's trying to buy a house right now, you're probably having a hard time. People are paying $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 over the asking price, and they're paying cash. Those people are not from Houston. They're from places like California and Florida where they can do that. So we want, as new people come in, we want to get those dollars into our communities. We want to get that talent into our communities. And Houston, on so many occasions, the suburban areas, I think of Katy and I think of the Woodlands and even Pearland, have won all types of awards for being top communities in the whole United States. And so as the Pearland community, we want to continue to compete. We've got a very nice community, very diverse, very well connected, very organized, great places to live, great communities, great schools. We want to continue to attract people to our community. Today's students are tomorrow's leaders. So we want to remember that. And that's why one thing I didn't say before is very commendable for you guys that are in education, because it shapes the future. It really shapes the future. I can remember distinctively some educators that I had that really made an impact on me. And I think, oh, what if I never have taken that class? Never had that person. It just makes such a difference. So you guys are really to be commendable. And I know from talking to my mother-in-law, I don't know how it is with Pearland ISD and Alvin ISD, but both my mother-in-law and my father-in-law work for HISD, and I knew it was hard. From what I hear, it's not hard dealing with the students. It's hard dealing with all the bureaucracy and red tape and all the stuff that goes on. So you guys are really to be commended. So how do we teach entrepreneurship? You want to leverage the talent of community leaders and volunteers who infuse the class with a real life perspective. That's very important. Within the Pearland community, Pearland, Alvin, Manville community, we got tons and scores of entrepreneurs. And based on our membership here at the Pearland Chamber, we have a lot of active people. That would be something that would be very easy, is to leverage those community leaders and small business owners and get them involved and it's a way for them to give back, to participate in an entrepreneurial program at the student level. Assign coaches and mentors to the students. Mentorship is something that we had at the University of Houston in our entrepreneurial program. They teamed us up with a mentor to be with throughout the program, and it was very helpful. Mentorship is something that not everybody takes advantage of. And you don't have to really be going into entrepreneurship to get a mentor. It can just help you with life skills. Finding somebody that you feel is a good example of things for you to strive for, or type of person you want to be, and asking them, hey, can you be my mentor? But how awesome would it be to find coaches and mentors at the student level to help them develop business skills? It's not something you see all the time. You do see some mentorship at times, you know, like you got the big brothers, big sisters, maybe targeted towards at-risk individuals or things like that. But I was never offered any type of coach or mentor in school. That would have been awesome. I would have ate that a lot. My whole thing, I love learning from other people. They tell you do this, don't do that, avoid this problem. It's wonderful. Coaches support the classroom teacher in delivering lessons and providing support around a particular subject matter, like financial modeling or creating a value proposition. Mentors guide a student team throughout the course, serving as a source of guidance, networking, and real-world support through the progression of the course. Steps to create a high school entrepreneurial program. And this information, again, I'm not an expert on education, so I did research, and the information I'm presenting to you is based off some of that research that I found that some programs are doing in the US. So, form a community exploration committee. So you want to start exploring the idea. Expand the community involvement. We talked about that. That would be very easy in our community. Form an advisory board. So some that are going to oversee the program. And you would want to have that advisory board to really participate frequently throughout that course. Be visible. Consider curriculum content. So what are your courses going to be about? And I'll have a slide on that. Selecting a teacher, that's gonna be probably the most important, is finding someone. And that can be hard because it's really two different, tracks there, but finding a teacher that has real world experience in entrepreneurship, but that has the time and whatever's needed to actually be able to teach at the high school level. Select the students, and then you have to decide kind of how you want that to be. I know at the University of Houston, it was a whole application process, and then you only had, I think ours was 30, but I think the recommendation at the high school level would be between 20 and 30 students in the program. So you don't want it, it's not something that's gonna be very large, because you want it to be intimate. Organize the class meeting place and calendars, host a student orientation, build a business success network, communication with education. So different disciplines. In the example that I looked at, I think it was multiple schools or multiple districts that kind of came together and worked on an entrepreneurial program within a defined area. And then these are some things that should be included in an entrepreneurial curriculum. Ideal generation, feasibility assessment, sales and marketing, management, risk assessment, legal structure, financial projections, customer service, business etiquette, economic principles, problem solving, and leadership skills. So those would be what you want to have within your curriculum. And those are things that we learned at the university level. I just keep looking at this like, oh man, this would be awesome at the high school level. So awesome. I know we have schools, I think it's Turner, that has specialized programs. I only know that because I knew some kids that went there, and they have the specialized programs where you can teach them. And I think, can they graduate with a degree? Is it collaboration with HCC or?
They can graduate with an associate's degree from ACC.
Oh, ACC.
In general studies.
Yeah.
But all three of our high schools offer the entrepreneurship course I don't know about Alvin.
That's awesome. And what is that course like?
You know, I can't even tell you what the TEKs are right now. However, this weekend, I started looking at, the state of Texas TEA is pushing, actually, to me, they are expanding the concept of entrepreneurship and creating practicum in entrepreneurship courses. Those objectives are still being developed, is my understanding. But on the, list of valued industry-based certifications, there's one that's called Entrepreneurship in Small Business. And that's something that we've been looking at. It recommends 150 hours of classroom education prior to taking the certification exam. The certification is offered through an entity called Certiport. And haven't even looked at the cost of that. But as a program of study, I think across the board, TEA is doing a really good push of promoting entrepreneurship.
That's good. What was the name of that program? Entrepreneurship in
Small business.
small business.
Entrepreneurship and small business, it's not,
Oh,
it's and, yeah.
And small business.
So I've got a question for you. I know you're not finished with your presentation. But in looking at the circle, somebody, you know, if I'm in high school, yes, I can learn all of that. How do you teach someone to be a risk taker? Because at some point, you have to take that leap of faith. And how do you teach that?
So as I said, and that's an excellent question, entrepreneurship is not for everybody. I can look at, I give you a real life example, me and my husband. I'm a risk taker. I'll risk way more than the average person, and he won't. That creates friction, even when I was trying to start a business. So that might be something that's not for everyone. But there are people that have that within them. Yeah, there are people. So being able to identify what that looks like and have a person understand that if you feel that way, that's okay. It's okay if you're willing to risk more than the average person. And it's also okay if you're like, whoa, I can do entrepreneurship one way, but I don't really want to do it that way. For example, the type of business that I have is considered home care or senior care agency. I'm a risk taker, so when I started researching it and I decided this was the business I wanted to get into, I had the option of doing it as a franchise. Franchise is very safe, it's less risk, they tell you what to do, here's a package, pay me this money, and boom, you got a business. I'm very creative, I wanna do things my own way, I don't want people telling me what to do. The franchise route was not for me. I took the riskier route of trying to build a business from scratch. But for a person where maybe they don't wanna take as much risk, there are still options for them. So just identifying what's that level that you're comfortable with. And it doesn't mean just because you really don't like to take risks that you can't get into entrepreneurship. It just may mean certain businesses are not for you or certain paths are not for you. And that's where you think about, let's talk about feasibility assessment. So really understanding, and that's why having a small class, like 20 to 30 people, to really understand each individual and what their comfort level is, and then teach into that. Because, I mean, if you're like, hey, jump off this building with this bungee jump thing, I'm not willing to risk it. Somebody else might. I'm not jumping out of a plane, I'm just not happening. But I'll get on a roller coaster. I love roller coasters. I'm okay taking that risk. Everybody is different. And so, that's why I said the teacher is gonna be very important in this, because it has to be someone that has those skill sets. Because just because they're a good entrepreneur doesn't mean they're a good teacher. And just because they're an excellent teacher, they might not have the real life experience to teach entrepreneurship. So that would be a very key thing for running a program like that. Great question. So that's the end. So let's have a discussion, we still have some minutes. Any other questions you guys can think of, or comments, or how you even think this might can be possible within your district? Again, with my lack of knowledge of the school system and real world, how it all works. What are y'all's thoughts?
I like the idea of mentors. I think that, Pearland is pretty strong in finding mentors across the board, whether it's for our Rise Mentor program
Yeah, heard of that.
or the involvement of members of the chamber. I mean, obviously, the promotion of entrepreneurship is very strong. But I think in order for that to be successful, you have to identify students who truly have a passion for doing that. Otherwise, I can see it being a business person being a mentor to a student who's just meeting once a week or once every 2 weeks, and it's not going somewhere. I think it would need to have a goal somehow, some way.
Yeah, so that's a good point. And you remember, you gotta think of it two ways. So, entrepreneurship and teaching entrepreneurship to that student where that's their goal is to be an entrepreneur. Not everybody was like me at 8 years old, I know I wanna be in my own business. There are people out there like that. Not everybody. There's some people where they never even thought about it, but if it's presented with the idea, they're like, oh, yeah, that might be something I'll do. I think that will be the bigger group, or finding those that maybe never considered it. Maybe mom and dad just push you need to be a doctor, a lawyer, a nurse, you know, the typical things we say when we're little. But then also keep in mind the mindset. And that's gonna be the bigger thing. Teaching that entrepreneurial mindset where you can use that across the board. You don't have to open your own business, because you can use those same skill sets that's gonna make you successful in college, and gonna make you successful when you graduate and get into a business. Or if you decide not to go into college and you just go into the real world straight out of high school, you'll still have that mindset. So teaching those entrepreneurship skills is important. Good question.
I think when I heard you speaking initially, and you started showing us your circle and the skills that you learned at U of H, that's where my mind went. We are not at a place right now where we can add another program of study. We already have, it might be way too many. But one of the things that I kind of latched on to this thought was, there are so many different programs in our career technical education program in our district, not only at our CTE center, but in our high schools, that aspects of what you were saying were skill sets that kids need should be taught in all of those pathways and all of those programs of study. So I don't necessarily right now for Alvin see this as another program of study we could pick up, but I absolutely understand where we could fit in pieces to each one of those courses. Absolutely see how it applies.
And that's good to think on. That's not something I thought about, but now that you're saying it, I think that's something good to think on. What are some of the programs that you'll offer at Alvin?
Oh gosh, in CTE, from computer science to welding and everything in the middle.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, that's good. So for example, taking that mindset of what she's talking about, and I'll apply it to having graduated from a vocational school. I graduated in cosmetology. So it would have been great to have as part of our already curriculum that's set in place, a class on entrepreneurship. You know, because most of the girls in there, they graduated and they're doing hair. Yeah, they're starting a business. So adding those skills and then tailoring it to that specific industry that's a great idea. And that's a way in which you can take an idea like this and have practical value almost immediately. Because you don't really have to go through I don't think, again, excuse my ignorance, but I don't think you really have to go through red tape to try to get something like that within the program. Yeah, I think that's an excellent idea. And then also, even on the mentoring or the collaboration or the coaching, it would be awesome if we can coordinate the University of Houston, their program, and get them involved with Alvin ISD or Pearland ISD, I'm sure there's some synergies there where you can kind of cross and, you know, have some coaching there, either with their students or their professors. When I was there, they teamed us up with CEOs of a bunch of different companies, and we had field trips, and we put on, they just finished, a couple of weeks ago, they did it virtual, they did a gala, but we had what's called, it used to be called Burger Fest, it's now called Wolf Fest, where we had a day and we had to get together in teams, get to create a business, and it's basically a festival where the students at U of H will come and buy food from us. And we have to raise money, and so we have to figure out, I'm not in the food business, but we had to figure out, you know, how we're gonna make money off of this, how we're gonna get this food, can we get people to donate, what we're gonna sell. So doing things like that in a program like this, or they have the business plan competitions, you know, putting your business plan together. I didn't research this, but there might be competitions at the student level somewhere in the US. I know it is at the college level because the University of Houston, they participated in. And then also being innovative as a school district, thinking outside of the norm, outside of the box, and really giving yourself an opportunity to really get some recognition, because schools aren't really doing this. Schools are not really doing it. So you get the opportunity to really stand out, and again, attracting people to your program. I didn't realize this because again, I don't have kids, so when I looked to get an area or where we're gonna move, school was not a factor to me, but I learned this later on. Most people choose where they're gonna live based on the schools. I was like, really? I'm like, yes. So having programs and standing out, that just helps you. You know, it helps to get more dollars into your program, more prestige, more honors, more awards, really stand out, really be that wow factor within that school or that district. And that's kind of besides doing something for the students, but that's also kind of a what's in it for me type of deal, is having this very out of the box, innovative type of program. Good comments.
I have a question, or
Yes.
do you guys currently have any clubs that meet outside that are?
Yes, so DECA is an organization that, Dawson High School as well as Pearland High School are very involved in, and has multiple levels of, district competitions, state competitions, national, international competitions. And in that, it was originally geared toward, marketing classes, but it's been, expanded to include a lot of other business classes, even out to culinary. However, I don't see a whole lot of the culinary competitions in DECA. What you do see at the competition level at district, and our district typically has about 1,000 students compete every year. And we have the largest DECA district, and it's very impressive. And it needs judges, people from industry who have been entrepreneurs. But students pitch their business plans, or they give a speech trying to promote a product that they didn't know until 10 minutes ago.
Oh,
And
wow.
here's your product, right, that you're going to have to sell. But it offers a wide variety of competitions, and to me, when you see the kids compete, they are impressive. Just really impressive.
What is that? Do you know what that stands for?
Distributive Education Clubs of America.
Marketing, yeah, thought marketing was in there.
So is that a national program?
Yes.
Oh. Club of America. That's very interesting.
I just know that sometimes great programs start as an after-school club. You can get a teacher that's passionate and a community person that's passionate about something, and then the kids come and then it can grow into something that could become something else.
And I was in so many.
Yeah, I've seen it happen with the youth and government that used to not be, and then it ended up at Dawson High School, and
Right.
started thriving there, and it used to only thrive outside of the school district, even though it's for students. And it's great, education around our government and leadership.
So that's a great idea too, some type of club or things like that. And I remember when we had the clubs, and y'all really take me back to me. But we had the clubs, for the most part, it was like student run. You had a teacher that oversaw everything, but like we did everything. And it was great for, like when I had my resume together for college, I had all this stuff listed. They wanna see you're involved in all those different things. Okay, if that's it, that's about it. You guys have my cell phone? Or do you have my
I did
card?
not put your contact information on.
I gave him my card.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so if you have any questions or you want to get the PowerPoint or anything like that, I'm happy to provide that information. But I do wanna thank you for taking the time out to listen to our ideas. We hope they go somewhere. We know it may not be a grand thing. We do know that the PEDC, that services Pearland, also has some initiatives together that they're working on to come out in the future.
Were y'all part of that, consulting firm?
Yes, we read the summary just as a review to what can Dr. Kelly or me or someone else who's on email contribute before it went out to others.
So in 2019, the chamber took on an initiative to hire the Qiana as consultants to do a study on Pearland to see if we were primed for a innovation hub. And that started us planting the seed, if you will. Then the EDC is in their prosperity, Pearland prosperity strategic plan, and then they hired more consultants. We are a little bit different than they are, we just start doing it. We don't have to tell someone to come and tell us what we should be doing, because we've got entrepreneurs already on our board,
Yeah.
and they say we should be doing this. And so we just started, and then it moves on from there. So I'm very happy that we have planted the entrepreneurial seed.
Absolutely.
And, I know when I first came here in the early 2000s, I came in 2002, early on we started, identifying healthcare, biomed, and now we've got those companies, so it's just a matter of time and evolution that it'll happen.
Yeah, and we're excited to see what comes in the future. And
Let me ask you one last question, sorry. Tell me your career path story. You said that you knew that you wanted to be an entrepreneur very early. How early did you really know? And that, I know you said that you were very creative, but how did you decide the business that you've gone into?
Good question. I knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I didn't know exactly what type of business. But I started my own business when I was young. So I started doing manicures and pedicures. It wasn't licensed, thanks, but I was like young, I was like a teenager. And I would go around to the church ladies, Keaton Hall, and I would do their feet for like 20, they give me like $20 to do their pedicures, which was, as a kid, that's a lot of money. I also remember in middle school, I had my little caboodle. If y'all remember what caboodles are, it was filled with nail polishes. I had learned how to do those little designs on the nails, and so I would charge $1 for a design. And before school, we were waiting in the cafeteria, before school started, I'd had my little clientele, and I'd been doing nails. I was a little hustler. So I knew I wanted to get into business. And then I don't like people telling me what to do.
Right.
So then I graduated from high school and I had my license, but I knew I still wanted to go to college. I was working in the salon as like an assistant during college. I used that to support myself in college. So I thought my track was going to be salon. I even did my business plan on salon. And it's very hard, you need a lot of capital. Well, the way I wanted to do it, let me put it that way. The way I wanted to do it. So it wasn't really realistic for me at that time. I still have a salon idea. I have multiple salon ideas in my head, but the way I wanted to do it, I would not have had the capital to do it that way. And so I ended up on the sales route, because once you get out of school, you can have all these ideas, but at the end of the day, you gotta pay bills. So I got into sales, which I was really able to use my entrepreneurial skills, and that's why I say that mindset makes a big difference, because I was able to use my entrepreneurial skills and mindsets and determination and resilience and have a very successful sales career. So I worked my way into a six-figure position in sales, a high-level sales position, using those entrepreneurial skills that I was taught in entrepreneurship. And then that gave me the resources that I needed in order to open my business. Because I didn't have family that can give me money. I had destroyed my credit from those 7 applications to get those free t-shirts at U of H. So I had to really grind and save. And so then I was able, I detoured a bit, but then I was able to get into entrepreneurship just using the money that I had saved up. And then how I decided to get into senior care, I had no idea I would end up in senior care, was I watched my mom. She's a family caregiver, and she also did it part-time for a family friend, and she did it through a state Medicaid agency. Now, I don't do Medicaid, but that's how I got introduced to it. And one day, it just popped in my head, oh, I can do that. So I just started researching, and I'm really big at research. So I started researching it and talking with people, and I started going to classes and conferences, and that was really helpful for me to learn as much as I could about the business. Now again, because I'm self-funded, I couldn't just immediately stop. And then I also have this husband who's like, you making 6 figures, we good.
Yeah.
Like, everything's fine, why do you wanna, he's known I wanted to be an entrepreneur, and he's trying to talk me out of it. But, so it took a while before I could convince him, like, we're gonna still be able to eat, we won't be in a shelter, it's gonna be okay. Let me quit this job and let me pursue what I need to pursue, because I like to say I piecemealed my business together, because I started in 2010, I didn't start accepting clients in 2013, I didn't quit my full-time job to 2016. I didn't do it a conventional way, I did it the hardest way possible. But I'm self-funded, I didn't have to give away any equity of my business or anything like that, so it took longer to start, and it was harder, but I still got to do it my way, so that's kind of my story.
Thank you.
I think most entrepreneurs I have known are like pirates. No, they have a different mindset. I like guarantee. They just keep coming up with ideas, and they may not stick to one thing.
Yeah.
The ones I know keep doing other stuff, or they have staff that they give their dream to, and they go a new one. So it's kind of I think there are characteristics of an entrepreneur, a real entrepreneur.
I think that is so key what you just said. I bet there's skills, I bet there's personality tests right now out there where you can test these kids and these students and really identify people who have those skills, because that is so true. Like, I'll be sitting up here and just all these ideas. I got ideas in my head right now. They just come, and I drive my husband nuts. I'm like, I wanna do this, I wanna do this, and they just there are individuals like that.
And there are kids in our schools who know that about themselves already, just like you do. And if we target our programs and market them the right way, like in Alvin, we don't have that course or that track, but there are ways we can tap into what they are feeling and what they do know is their own personal strength, so.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Even
Well,
like
and even for you and your teachers to learn more about entrepreneurism, and their characteristics might flag them and help them.
And even for those, I think about those students, because I went to a vocational school and college was not pushed at all, and standardized testing was not pushed. And we had the TOS test back then, and they were just happy if you could pass the TOS test. So the SATs were not pushed, but the demographics of who went to that school, a lot of those were not college material individuals, but a lot of them might have had the resilience and grit to do a business. So really appealing to what people are, because at the end of the day, we want people to be successful, whether that's going to college or having a vocation or having a business, and really identifying who those people are and trying to target them. Because sometimes we push people into college and they'll fail because that's not really for them, and they're just doing it to please their parents.
My college roommate, my first college roommate, went to BJ. She's an accountant.
Oh, awesome.
That was way before you.
Well, the other company that we were going to go to, they had auditors come in at the last minute, is Gartner Coatings, and they still want to show you their facility and their technology that they use for powder coating. I was talking to, Daniel Combs, he said that might be something you could integrate into like your auto repairs, I don't know the difference, but, so that's still on the board, I don't know when we can read
I would be interested in that.
Yeah, just let us know when we have to, and I'll bring some people that I.
Okay, good.
Yes.
I got a lot of people that know that better than I do. They know they look at it.
Well, I'll reschedule with them, and it's just down the road from here, so that's not too far.
Thank you.
Thank you, Qiana.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Nice to meet you.
And please keep my card, if I can help out with anything, just let me know.
Thank you.
Good job.
There's still some sandwiches and some chips.